Welcome back to AI Search, the podcast about AI and machine learning in every industry. I'm excited to have Gabe Giro here with us today, a tech lead specializing in end-to-end productions. He works on Topal and also does other freelance work. So let's talk to you and see how you're doing, Gabe.
Hey, Tanya, thank you.
Yeah.
What are you interested in?
Yes, so first let's just hear a little bit about what you're doing and kind of what projects you've been working on recently that are exciting to you.
Sounds good. Yeah. So recently, right now, I'm working on a really exciting project. It's a small AR project where you're basically helping yourself to learn how to draw.
Okay.
Before that, I worked for a bigger client. It was like a Glovo app.
Okay.
But
so
in the
delivery.
middle, yeah, in the Middle East, hunger station.
Okay.
So they were pretty big. I did some Flutter development on a short-term project. I did basically just one feature inside of it, but I learned a lot, and I love learning. That's kind of my passion and why I entered software engineering in general. And before that, some notable clients, I would say Yahoo Fantasy Sports, HBO Go, when it was HBO Go, not Max.
Max, yeah.
What else? Yeah, I had lots and lots of interesting projects.
Do you feel like as a freelancer you can kind of touch on a lot of things and maybe not specialize, but kind of get to like a higher seniority level by just trying a bunch of different projects faster than somebody who maybe is kind of sat at a company for 5 years?
I would definitely say so. I would say the problem, there are some pros and cons, of course, of being a freelancer, being a contractor. But yes, just with Android for the first, let's say, 2 years of my career, I worked on, I think, 3 projects, but they were already set up by other developers. So you can already see what they're doing good, what's not working, and you are kind of speed running through the learning curve of some platforms. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and were you able to like maybe find different mentors at that time when you were starting out, maybe now mentor other freelancers, or is it very much like a solo environment that you're only doing your own task?
It depends. Lately, I've been hiring mentors on a regular basis, especially if I don't know some area of technical knowledge. If I'm even for this Flutter role, I hired a tutor just to help me with some basics, because I didn't know the basics, although I have the high-level understanding of how to do things. But just something that a junior doesn't know, I needed to learn, and then it was just smooth sailing after that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great experience. I think I also enjoy freelancing too, and I think for me it allows a lot of personal development through the tasks, and not only that, but I think a lot of kind of skills that maybe even a CEO has, where they have to kind of fend for their own jobs and fend for their own clients and projects, and that whole time organization thing that maybe a programmer who's just in a company environment, a secure company environment, wouldn't experience.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And as a freelancer, you're kind of your own entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So that's also sometimes challenging, but usually I enjoy the process.
Yeah, definitely. So in the last few years, have you seen a lot of new projects come out that are working in machine learning or AI? I mean, you mentioned this augmented reality project you're working on.
Yeah, so with the AI, there's let's say a high spike of people trying to find AI solutions for their businesses. But when it comes to, let's say, software, so there are many really good applications of AI in, let's say, automating some processes, especially if you have a human in the loop. But when it comes to, there's like a big market where people, especially CEOs or people who are not tech savvy, they expect from AI too much.
Yeah.
Even at this point, like we're already, let's say, 3 or whatever years after ChatGPT 3.5 went out.
It was 4 years, yeah.
So yeah, there are still very high expectations, and they think of it as a magic bullet, which it's not, especially in development. You need to know some things, and you need to really have the understanding of how to do things properly. And the only way you can do that is by having some senior or an architect or someone like that, and then maybe with the help of AI, you can maybe speed some things up.
Yeah. Are there any like points in your workflow that you have implemented AI and or tried and failed or tried and stopped?
So in my personal work, I use like Copilot. So in an IDE, there's a Copilot. So that one helps me because it has a bigger context. So I don't necessarily have to copy paste like 3 classes.
Yeah.
But I can just point, okay, these are the 3 classes I want you to check out, and then try to give me a solution. With and the other one that I'm regularly using is ChatGPT, different modules, but to be honest, right now I'm lost. Like the namings, there's like 4.0 and then there is 03, 04.
Yeah.
I'm lost. I don't know which one to use. So I kind of play with different projects. I choose different models.
Okay.
But in general, I use it more as just try to give me an idea. If I know, let's say I'm really at home with Android, native development, and there I'm more using it maybe once in 10 tasks, just to give me an idea, because maybe I'm blocked or I don't have an idea how to solve a problem. But usually I actually code out the solution, because it doesn't have the context, the full context of the architecture, or maybe even if you're joining the project which already has a bad architecture or no architecture, and you're trying to refactor the code into something, let's say, usable for other developers, then you have to do
everything. On your own.
Your part.
That's true. I would say it's a good buddy to talk to, but sometimes you're definitely gonna have to, take it old school and type out the code yourself. And I think that's seen a lot. I mean, there are a lot of cases, as you said, Copilot, but there's a lot of cases that they're saying that almost even 70% of the code generated is being created by AI, which is kind of scary for me, because I think that it's questionable how much of that is spaghetti code and how much of that is high quality. And I think, ChatGPT is still very young, and these other agents, other bots that are available are still very young. So we might see a progression of that. But I think it's also, as you said, there's always missing that architectural and that seniority piece that are crucial in high quality code and crucial in high quality infrastructures. Yeah,
that's true. And I mean, this 70% of code being generated by AI, it's mostly really like not usable in the long term, but it actually creates a market for us seniors. So we can actually, if the company by some chance becomes actually successful with their software, we can come in and we can make it, we can apply some solid principles, and we can actually in the long term make this company not waste resources, and we can save them a lot of money. That's for sure. That's
true.
For sure.
Yeah. How do you feel about this kind of young people going into the workforce with ChatGPT? It's as you said, it's creating kind of a market for senior and like higher level, I would say mid and senior level programmers and software engineers are not having a problem with finding jobs. But as for kind of juniors, unless they're really kind of handed an opportunity on a silver platter with a good mentor, they might kind of be stuck in a place where they don't feel like they can progress, or that they feel like their job is kind of replaced with ChatGPT just because they don't have enough knowledge.
That's a big subject.
Yeah.
That's a big subject. I'll try to cover as much basis as possible, but let me start first from a senior standpoint. And then I will touch the junior standpoint, because when ChatGPT 3.5 went out, I actually switched totally. Let's try to learn this new thing. I didn't know any Python development, any full stack development. I did some back-end stuff back in the day, but with full stack development, I didn't know anything. And my first project was, I called it IG Recruiter, which helped me find IG models for different like events, charity events. And the biggest issue there was how to scrape profiles.
Okay.
Because that's
Yeah.
not something Instagram agrees with,
Yes.
so to say. That was one challenge, and then the second challenge was how to figure out who is a male, who is a female.
Okay.
Because with this, let's say, Western thinking, we're not trying to put like genders into two possibilities.
Yeah.
So first I tried on my models, and but that didn't work. It gave me like very low percentage of success, and then I went back to Hugging Face.
Okay.
Hugging Face models, and they were varying between 60 and 90% of efficiency.
Yeah.
But basically, I took like a Chinese pedestrian model, like a
Okay.
gender
Yeah,
recognition
yeah,
model,
yeah.
because they're not westernized, you
Yes.
know. So that was 90% success rate, which is great.
Yeah.
On 10,000 profiles, you have like 9,000 for sure
Correct
female
answers,
profiles, which you can then share with different agencies and whatever. But where ChatGPT and this learning came in was with setting everything up, like setting the pipeline. Okay, give me like, at this point I don't know anything, you know.
Yeah.
So give me like steps how to do this whole project, and then it gave me steps. Then I separated it into smaller steps, and at one point, I think I reached like finding 10,000 profiles in 30 minutes,
Okay.
and there was like I think 10 gigabytes per those 10,000 profiles.
Okay.
In requests
Yeah,
to
yeah.
GCP.
Yeah.
So, and with just one question to GPT, so at this point I had, for this project I had,
solution.
yeah, but I had two mentors which didn't know like this specific problem, you know, how to solve it. I asked a question to ChatGPT, how I can speed this up and how I can lower this 10 gigabytes, because as time progresses, now it's in 1 hour 10,000
Yeah.
profiles. Now it's in 10 hours 10,000 profiles. Something is wrong.
Yeah.
With just one question, I lowered the latency, so it was not increasing anymore. So it was consistently giving me 10,000 profiles in 30 minutes. So what, 20,000 per hour. But those 10 gigabytes went down to like 6 megabytes.
Super. Yeah.
So that was a big
Yeah.
improvement. So, and even later on with one Python full stack project, also some scraping involved. I didn't know how to use Visual Studio Code at that point. It helped me how to read the error logs.
Okay.
It helped me in different, let's say, tasks, how to move forward, because I don't know
New
anything.
interface.
Yeah. And with time, I actually picked things up, and I could read the log by myself. I could develop by myself. I could write my code. But let's say I had an advantage because I already understand some concepts from my software engineering background.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to juniors freshly coming into software engineering, you even mentioned on our call, like there are many students who come out of, let's say, college or middle school or high school. They don't know how to solve problems.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely use GPT when you're working on your project, but when you are, let's say, in a learning environment, try to always stretch yourself and try to make yourself figure things out.
Yeah.
Because what ChatGPT takes away from a software engineer is the creativity in problem solving and critical thinking, which is really important. I mean, I had some issues now with my foot, so I'm always trying to stretch it a bit more every time I work out. That's the same with software engineering.
Yeah, stretch your brain a little bit more
Exactly.
every time you do a task.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this is really important. I think there are still a lot of schools that go back to, like, I wouldn't say coding by hand, but
that was good. That was good.
Coding by
like
hand.
in high school, I was actually they taught us on a paper.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you don't know if that works.
Yeah.
But then it really teaches you how to just think out of your head.
Yeah, to visualize what you
Yeah.
wrote. It's
Yeah.
a language after all, so
That's true. That's true.
you're
That's true.
processing something.
Yes.
I think that a lot of people who are studying mathematics are seeing more success in kind of today's landscape because they have been doing a lot of mathematical algorithms and integrals and stuff like this and pushing their brains to that capacity, and it's kind of easier for them to get into software development from kind of like algorithmic side of back-end algorithms. But it's going to be interesting to see what studies are going to be more hands-on that are going to promote the critical thinking that you need for software development today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't have honestly an opinion on that because I'm a how do you say, college dropout. So after,
I think a lot of people are.
yeah, for me it was like I was going to study and I was studying software engineering, but then second year I started my own project with a friend of mine, which was like a Taxi Central, an Uber-like app.
Yeah.
And just based off of that, but back then I had zero entrepreneurial experience, and a friend of mine was also like engineering mindset, and we couldn't promote it. We didn't know how to.
Yeah.
But that was a great experience, and basically based off of that experience, I got jobs for next 2 years.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, when I started just working, I'm like, why do I need to finish college? I'm not saying you shouldn't finish college, but this was my situation.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's a lot of hands-on experience. I mean, I think you never stop learning at that point.
Yep.
Even if you finish your college degree, even if you do a master's and a doctorate, I think even doctors today have to keep on studying to constantly stay up to date with the latest knowledge, latest news, attend conferences, attend workshops, seminars to keep their knowledge going. And I think that's really important, is the critical thinking never ends. And whether you're doing your research, from your house and doing online courses or attending online webinars, seminars, whatever you can do, or going to actual talking to people and educating yourself. Like, education doesn't have to be in an institution, and education never is allowed to end. You should be educating yourself even when you're, 90 years old, because when your brain's done, you're done.
Yeah. When you start acting old, you become old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think working on technically difficult projects is always kind of like a good driver to push your mental capacity, and whether you can use AI to assist a little bit in that or not, it's definitely going to be, a telltale sign of who's developing their brain in the future.
That's true. That's true. I agree.
Is there a place where you think that people should never or not use AI while they're programming?
Well, let me try to think about this. Actually, I'm preparing one blog post right now, and it's actually about this subject. So when to use these LLMs in software engineering. The biggest one I would say where you shouldn't use it, it's probably like when you enter mid-level kind of engineering, because to become, or higher junior, I would say, higher junior and mid-level. For higher junior, you actually need to start thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to start reading documentation. If you never read any documentation, just stop right now using these tools. For mid to senior, like let's say mid who is looking to become a senior, it's usually more of a challenge, soft skills. So LLMs don't really play any role there. It's more of how you can communicate effectively and how you can lead people. That's and how you can mentor different levels of, let's say, knowledge. But as seniors, so for example, in my case, whenever I really understand something, I'm maybe using it just to give me an idea, but I'm doing all the code myself because we have the standard how we're building the app, what's the architecture, and usually LLMs, you can't copy enough of that to give it enough context, and it will probably also hallucinate. So that's also an issue. But so as a pair programmer, kind of, and maybe just some boilerplate code. But even then, it's a question: are you faster? You know, because you're switching a lot of tabs, you're you're using your keyboard like advanced stuff. But at the end, are you actually faster than someone who just writes this up?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And I think there is like in senior developers, especially ones who are programming, 8 hours a day or like all the time, day and night doing side projects and everything, they're typing code, as fast as they're thinking it. So just the fact that they have to type out a prompt to ChatGPT just slows them down. Definitely.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your blog. So what else have you been writing about?
Recently, I've been writing mostly about these architecture stuff, some like refactoring ideas. I even have like a thing against pull requests in big companies.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Because I think we talked about this, right, on the call. So the thing is, these pull requests came from open source projects, and they are mostly done. Well, I mean, the idea was you don't want some random to just plug their code, and now everybody has access to that code. They can introduce bugs, they can introduce backdoors, and you don't want that in your code. So when it comes to big companies, and let's say in the 40 projects or more I worked in, there were probably like 10 projects where I was working solely with senior engineers. Okay, so there, like, pull requests are just slowing you down. So if you hired someone and you have like trust as one of your core values in your company, and let's say Scrum promotes trust as one of your core values, but that's a different subject. So you shouldn't make your senior engineers do pull requests.
Interesting.
But what I would say as a disclaimer, you should have code discussions, which are moderated by someone who is like an expert.
And I think that's a fantastic way for even junior members or mid-level members of the team to kind of be aware of what's going on. That's like a learning environment for younger team members, as well as not irritable pull requests and code reviews for senior members of the team, who then also time-wise feel blocked because they have to wait for somebody to review their code. Yeah,
because at that point you're kind of hindering the possibility of creating 10x developers. I would say every developer has a potential to be a 10x developer. But it's just a question: is that person in the right environment? And if they have enough, let's say, seniority or understanding of whatever technology they're working in, you should remove as many blockers as possible. So with PRs, you maybe do, let's say, 5 pull requests in a week. But without PRs, you maybe solve like 20 problems. That's a big boost in productivity. and the thing is, maybe with the code review later, you will say, okay, I don't like 2 of these things you implemented.
But that's still 18 that are good out of 5 that you would have done before, or whatever the statistic could be on that. Yeah, it's definitely a food for thought, and I think there's definitely value in it for open source code, but it's definitely, I think if you can build like a community of trust within your company, especially for kind of small to mid-sized companies, definitely a possibility, or small to mid-sized teams, it doesn't have to be the company, right?
Yeah.
Keeping teams in a manageable size so that, products can push forward rapidly and that, processes don't get slowed down. I feel like a lot of large companies, developers complain that they aren't able to, push the product as fast as a startup, for example, because in a startup it's like all hands on deck, fire in the hole, we're going.
Yeah. Although in big companies you also kind of have to think about reputation.
There's a lot of other factors, of course.
Yes. There are some. I would say you always have to find some like a middle path. Like a middle ground. And in bigger companies, of course, you have like heavy CI/CD. You have heavy processes. And maybe a project that you started last year in January maybe will be finished by the end of that year. Or maybe even not.
Not that year.
So
long term.
But in bigger companies, there's, let's say, more structure. So it's also, what do you as a person like feel like working in?
Do you have a specific preference, or do you like to freelance for kind of more of that structured version, or more of like a starting project?
Depends. I don't prefer working with, let's say, very small teams. Like I don't like to be a sole developer, although I was many times. The thing is, I like to have some support because I'm definitively not. I don't think about myself as like a know-it-all. And I always like to have some direct feedback because without it, sometimes I'm not even sure am I doing the right work. But for example, even when I worked with Hunger Station a few months ago, it's very nice to hear from a colleague who is taking over this feature that I developed, and who says, "Oh, I like how you organized it. I was very meticulous, and I applied like testing-driven development to it." Which was not necessarily what the company does. Although they have tests, I'm like, if you're doing tests, do it testing-driven development. And I'm hoping I paved the way for future development in that company.
This is interesting. I think that's also one of the huge benefits that companies get from actually hiring freelancers, especially highly skilled freelancers. They can definitely, pick up some tidbits and information that might be useful to actually change the processes in their company. So I feel like this is true for both in design and marketing, and then also, of course, software development. Sometimes you don't need like a full-on, chief officer, technology officer, marketing officer, whatever role that is, to be full-time there. But sometimes like someone comes in for a month or 2 or 3 and can make a big change if they're kind of have the eyes and ears open and they're ready to accept that.
You mentioned optimizing processes. And that's a really big thing I love. So that's why in very small companies I really can't, let's say, make a big impact that I feel like good about it. But when it comes to mid-size and very big companies, that part is really really cool. I'm even thinking taking some courses of actual business optimization. I forgot what it's called. ERP. ERP. But I'm trying to do it through software engineering.
Well, I think that's going to be like an interesting path too. Like a technical ERP also. Definitely going to be the kind of pave the future for what this kind of landscape looks like. And I think a lot of people are hoping that AI will be able to optimize processes but and automate processes, but it's maybe not there just yet for programming.
Yep.
Who knows? I've been to a
true.
lot of AI meetups that are, upcoming startups and companies that are working on automating code. And it's interesting, and I think there's a lot of potential, but I also think we're not there yet.
And the biggest thing why we're not there yet, and I think this is the biggest misconception about LLMs in general, like they're just ML models.
Yeah.
So they are made to do the guesswork of what's before, and then make a guesswork what's the next word.
Yeah.
So if there's no creative thinking
there's
there,
no,
you know?
So, I would say artificial intelligence doesn't yet exist. It's
AGI,
just,
yes,
exactly.
AGI with
we're not there yet.
definitely not there yet, and
we'll see. I think the way the models are built currently, that's not necessarily possible for AGI to exist yet. But in the future, if the programming will change and the creation of those models will be different, it might be possible. But it's going to be very questionable if that's going to be consumer friendly as chatbots are today.
Yes. But so, let's say if there's combination of different models, probably. But just one model,
difficult. Very
difficult. Even our brain, where machine learning comes from, like learning how our brain works, even our brain can't rely just on one model, you know?
Every single life experience that you've ever had has to go into your decisions and your process of creation. So
that's
I think
true.
That's going to be something that ChatGPT with a prompt can't exactly articulate the way that humans do at this moment.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, very interesting to talk to you, and I'm really excited to hear about that blog that you're currently working on about AI, and looking forward to that. Where can we find that, or the viewers, where can they find that?
I have lots of socials. You'll probably add
I'll add it on the link in the bottom.
But I would say LinkedIn. Connect with me wherever. I'm preparing my Instagram, although it's my lifestyle kind of stuff. The blog post will come by the end of May. So subscribe to the newsletter on the website. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there are other, Twitter, X, YouTube, but it's whoever prefers what.
Sounds good. Well, it was great talking to you. Nice meeting you.
Great talking to you as well, Tanya.
Perfect. You can watch AI Searched on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you think in the comments.